Extra mean-spirited. Which I thought was a really funny way to describe a skinned man. Like, that's so underwhelming and just like, oh, that's mean. Hello. So today I actually have my first time ever reading an extreme horror collaboration. So I stumbled upon the book called Through the Eyes of Desperation, the red version online. And I saw that the red version was by Aron Beauregard. And I knew that name because I had read The Slob a few months ago. So I was actually kind of excited to read it because it just came out recently. I figured that's the only book that I've read by him, but I really wanted to read more. So I was like, okay, now's the time. And then I go online and I see the same book, Through the Eyes of Desperation, but it says the black version, and it says by Daniel J. Volpe, who I also happened to have read. I read his previous book, Talia. And so then when I looked at it and I realized, at first I thought I had made a mistake, but I looked closer and I realized that they had collaborated. And I was so excited because I was like, oh, what are the odds that I just happened to, like, I didn't know that they did that. Apparently this isn't the first time, but I didn't know that because, you know, I'm new here. And, and so I was excited. I was like, okay, so of course I have to read both of them. Like, they're both authors that I've been wanting to read again. So this is the perfect opportunity. I read both of these on the Kindle app. The first one that I ended up reading was Through the Eyes of Desperation, the black version. And that's the one that's by Daniel J. Volpe, author of Talia and other books as well. The setting for these stories is a casino called Shadows. And this is a very extreme version of gambling, where people are not just gambling money. If they run out of money, they are gambling flesh. They are gambling eyeballs or disfigurement or whatever, like any part of their body that they, you know, it's just very, sometimes it's just very lewd acts that they have to do if they lose. They, again, can use money, but it's always when they run out of money, then you can get more and more extreme until ultimately you lose your life if you lose the bet. It's very, very extreme gambling. This version, the black version, focuses on the character C. Now, this is a woman. The story jumps back in time a little bit to when she's younger, so you understand how she came to be at Shadows, how she came to work there. So there is a bit of backstory and explanation there. But she ends up being kind of like the head honcho, and she's known as the Black Widow. So that's why it's called the black version, presumably. Also red and black obviously being for roulette. Double meanings and all that. So it focuses on her, how she got to be in that position, which was not easy. I don't think I want to give away how and why she works there, but I will say that it's involved with her childhood, that she ends up there at a young age. It's very interesting to see her background, to see the childhood events that kind of shaped who she is as a person before she even got to Shadows. She is not a mentally stable person. How could you be? Like, running a place like that. So that's the base premise, is focusing on this woman, how she came to be the head honcho of this casino. The other book, Through the Eyes of Desperation, the red version, which is the one by Aron Beauregard. Now this one is, again, still the casino, still Shadows, but it is about a man who goes by the nickname Red, and he is a gambler at the casino. And so you don't really jump back to his childhood, really, but you do jump back in time to understand why he's there. And I will just say that he's you know, you have to typically, either you're not quite right in the head if you're gambling there, or you're extremely desperate. Because yeah, if you lose, you could lose a limb or ultimately lose your life, but if you win, then you're set for life. Like, you could be a millionaire walking out of that place. So it really is for people who are very, very desperate. The character Red is there because he owes people a lot of money, and it's to the point that the safety of his mother is in jeopardy, but also the fact that he is actually looking for his missing daughter, which is very, very expensive. He tried to hire like a PI. So the combination of trying to have enough money to find his missing daughter and also pay back these people who are threatening to hurt his mother if he does not, is the events that led to him going to this casino in the first place. Of course, there's overlap between him and the Black Widow, or C. So yeah, those are kind of like the perspectives, who you're focusing on in each book. What the two books have in common is that both of them have two different endings. I guess with the physical copies of the books, they actually gave you like a poker chip that you would have been able to like flip. However, you know, me not having the physical copy, it's like, oh, just take a coin and flip it. I didn't do that. I mean, I think most people are going to want to read both endings. They're not going to want to actually only choose one. So I read both endings of both books, of course. It's just basically like the final gamble. Did he win the gamble or did he lose the gamble? And then you get two different versions from the Black Widow's perspective, and you get two different versions from Red's perspective. And I will say, you know, with extreme horror, I feel like I've said in my previous videos about that they typically are short for good reason, because they're so vulgar and they're so vile that the things that you're describing start to lose impact if the story goes on too long. However, these are not short books. Like, these aren't little 100-page books. The Red version was over 300 pages. The Black version is a little under 300, but they're more like full-length books. And so I don't want to say that they weren't as impactful, because they definitely do have a good amount of gore in them. Again, I don't want to say desensitized, because you're going in with that intention. I think if you know what you're getting into with extreme horror, especially with these authors based off of the other two books I read by them, I'm like, okay, well, it's probably going to be pretty gory. I will say I was pleasantly surprised to see that they actually, especially the Black version, the book that Daniel J. Volpe wrote, that the two endings, both of them were the goriest out of the entire book. Like, both endings had scenes that just made me absolutely cringe. And I would say for the Red version from Aron Beauregard, one of the versions was also very gory and hard to read. But the other version, I would argue, one ending from Aron Beauregard that was less gory, but it was probably the most satisfying, I would say, personally. Not because it wasn't gory, just coincidentally it happened to be the most satisfying. The endings don't necessarily contradict each other, but they just focus on different characters and different, you know, perspectives and all that. So at first I thought that this was going to be kind of like a versus, but they really do complement each other well. I'm sure it would be fine either way. I read the Black version first, and I think I like that I read that version first. I think I would do that again. Although, again, I'm sure it would be fine if you read it the other way around. It's fun. It's kind of like watching Saw, where part of the fun is to see what sort of traps and scenarios people are going to get into. So both of these books are fun to see what kind of bets are going to be placed, what demands are going to be made, what sort of situation. It's very fun in that way to see what insane thing they're going to come up with to just trying to one-up themselves and each other, probably, I would imagine. If I didn't know which author had written which one, I think I would have been able to predict it still. I haven't read that much from either author, obviously, but based off of Talia and the Black version of this from Daniel J. Volpe, when he writes kind of sexual depravity, it still has a bit of like, I don't want to say allure, but it's still like a little bit actually sexy. Like, it's not just gross. It's still kind of sexy. Aron Beauregard, it's just gross. Like, it's just repulsive. Like, there really isn't any sexiness left. It's just purely gross, and that's an easy way to me to distinguish between these two. Yeah, so I guess if you've never read either of these authors before, I would just say if you like extreme horror or you're curious about it, these are very, like, from what I can tell, these are very representative of the genre as a whole. They work well together. It was fun. It was fun to read both of these books and have kind of the dual perspectives, and you get kind of the best of that world of just like the gore and, you know, little sexy stuff. The casino also has something called the dollhouse, where there's prostitutes who work there, but none of them are just average looking women. They're women who are missing an eye, or missing their lips, or they're missing their legs. Like there's something about them that makes them a fetish, or, you know, whatever. So yeah, it's just very representative of this just being a place for depravity. But it's still, I don't know, it was just very, even though it was very gross and at times hard to read, especially the endings, it really did build up, which I was happy with. I was glad that it built up to that. That I didn't find any of the endings disappointing at all. I liked all of them. So I would recommend it if you are looking for just sort of a just extreme horror, but still fun and relatively lighthearted under the circumstances, I guess. But yeah, and it also made me curious to look into, I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure that I saw that these authors have collaborated before. So it makes me kind of curious to check that out as well. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And maybe I'll see you next time. I really mean the way they skin that man.